Hi, everyone. My name is Shona Vaz. I am currently the chair of the APPIC Board of Directors. We are very excited to bring you this workshop, this demo today, and for Jonah to tell you more about National Matching Services interview scheduling software. Some of us, we piloted it last year and got incredibly positive reviews from both training directors and students who were able to use it. And Jonah's going to tell us about some of the advantages. The board strongly encourages internship training directors to try this out this year. And the benefit to applicants is that they'll be able to see all of their interviews in one place. So the more people that use it, the more positive the experience will be for applicants. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Shona. Okay, so I'm going to get started. NMS Interview is a new module integrated into the NMS Match system. It simplifies and automates interview scheduling for sites and applicants. Today, I'm going to walk through the process of creating an interview schedule, adding applicants to your candidate list, and sending interview invitations. I'll leave some time at the end for questions. Please put them in the chat. I think that will be the easiest way for us to manage them. We're going to be recording this webinar, so if you need to leave, we'll post a link to the recording on the Match website, and we'll send it out to everyone who's registered. As Shona mentioned, APPIC is encouraging sites to use NMS Interview. Sites aren't required to use it, but APPIC's made it available to all sites at no cost because it really does simplify the process for sites and applicants. Last year, we ran a pilot of NMS Interview with some APPIC programs. We found it saved programs on average about 5 hours assigning and scheduling their interviews. Applicants strongly preferred it compared to other scheduling methods. And because it is a common system for programs and applicants, there are efficiencies in managing your schedules and creating your rank order lists. So I'm going to walk through this demonstration as an APPIC site. You access NMS Interview by logging into the NMS Match system. You'll see there's an interviews panel on your dashboard, and there's also an interviews options in the menu. The first thing to get started with is settings. So you go into the interview section. There's an option for settings at the top. NMS Interview operates at the training site level. If your site offers more than one program in the match, the settings that you put here for interview apply to all the programs that your site is offering. If you have multiple tracks, I'll show you later on how you can create separate events for each track if necessary. But the first thing you have to do is you have to set your time zone. Select the time zone that corresponds to the location where you'll conduct your interview. Usually this is the time zone where your site is located. The time zone is important because candidates will see the timing of the interview in your time zone as well as their own, and making sure that you have the right time zone set will help avoid conflicts when candidates are scheduling their interviews. You must also create at least one interview type. The system allows candidates to book only one event of each type offered by your training site. So if you intend to have only one interview event with each candidate, you only need one type. It can be called interview, it can be called internship interview. But if you want to have multiple interactions with the same candidate, like an initial interview and a follow-up interview, you should create multiple types. Also, if your site has multiple tracks and you want to invite a different set of applicants to interviews for each track, you should create multiple interview types, one for each track. One question that we've gotten, as some sites have already started to use NMS Interview, is what happens if my site has an interview day where we invite 10 or 15 applicants to attend the day, and then we have a rotational schedule of 20 faculty members who interact with the applicants throughout the day. In these cases, we suggest keeping it simple. You should use NMS Interview to create the events for the interview days, and then let applicants choose which day they want to attend. Once you know which candidates are attending which day, you can then proceed as you're in your usual process to plan the intraday events and assign faculty to specific interviews. Now, every site organizes their interviews differently. So we wanted NMS Interview to be flexible enough to accommodate different needs. The schedule that I'll create here in this demo may not apply directly to your site. It may, in fact, not apply to any site for that matter, but you should be able to identify some similarities in how you structure your interviews and how you can use this for your site. So for this demonstration, let's assume the site has two tracks, an adult track and a pediatric track. And the way that they structure their interviews is that there will be an interview day where all candidates will attend a full day session, which might have some like a tour and some rotational interviews. And then we want to have separate one-on-one interviews with the training director for the adult track and for the pediatric track. So the first thing let's do is create our first type, which will be the interview day. You can add as many types as you like. So in this case, we'll have one event type for the interview day, one for the one-on-one interviews with the adult track, and one for the individual interviews for the pediatric track. We'll add another one for the adult, and one more for pediatric. There's an option for a daily digest email. Now, the digest email is an email that's sent to the training director and any secondary or sub-users you've created for the site that will provide all of the updates that have been made to your interview schedule over the last 24 hours. So it's only sent once per day, and it summarizes all the changes, but it's a helpful tool if you want to see who's scheduled, who's perhaps rescheduled. We recommend you leave the daily digest email on, but if you want, you can turn it off. Once your time zone and types have been set, you can then start adding your interview events. Now, you can add your interview events from either the Events tab or the Calendar tab. These two tabs show the same information, just in slightly different formats. This is as a calendar, this is as a list. And so you start by pressing the Add Interview link. Okay, and now adding your first interview event is very similar to creating an interview or event in any online calendar. You need a title, so we'll call it an interview day. You have to select which type of interview this is. So we've created three types: an adult, an interview day, and pediatric type. We'll start with creating the interview day. You have to pick the start and end times for the event. Let's say it's an all-day event, and so we'll start at 9 and we'll end at 5 p.m. I would just note that this is a 24-hour clock, just so there's no confusion about AM or PM. So this is an interview day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can select the date or dates which this event will be held. So perhaps we want to have 2 interview days. We'll just, for the sake of simplicity, pick Monday and Tuesday are the 2 options. This will create an interview day event on each of these days. You have to specify how many candidates can sign up for each of these events. So this is an interview day. Let's imagine we can have 10 candidates attend each of the days. And so we'll enter in 10 as for the number of candidates. You also have the option of specifying a location or providing a video conference link, adding a PDF that might have some the day's schedule or further information about the site for the candidates. And these can be added at the time of creating the event, or you can create your events, have applicants schedule, and you can add them after the fact, and applicants will be notified of those changes. You can also specify a lockout date for the event. The lockout date is the final date for when applicants can schedule, reschedule, or cancel their attendance at the event. So once the lockout date has passed, applicants cannot make any scheduling changes for the event. They'll have to contact your program directly, and then you can manually schedule or cancel the event for them after the lockout date has passed. So the location, the instructions, the lockout date are all optional, but some sites certainly find the lockout date helpful. So I've now added my first 2 events. They're an interview day on the 23rd and 24th. They're shown here on the calendar. They're also shown similarly on the events list. Now let's go on and create some additional events for the one-on-one interviews. So we'll call this a TD interview for the training director interview. First, we'll create the adult events. These ones will say, let's say, start from 9. Maybe they'll only be half an hour interviews. So this first one will end at 9:30. And maybe we'll conduct these on the 30th and 31st. These are one-on-one interviews, so only one candidate can attend. And again, you can specify these now or later if you want. So the events of each type are shown on your calendar in a different color to help distinguish them. And now I'm also going to add one more set for the pediatric event. So now I have 2 interview day events, 2 adult interviews, and I'll add in some pediatric interviews. Again, we'll call this a TD interview because that's what the candidate will see. This is our pediatric interview. Maybe we'll schedule these from 10 to 10:30. We can again schedule these on the same day. Maybe it's the Monday and Tuesday. One candidate for each of these events. And so you build out your interview schedule by adding events on the various days. This by default shows a month view. You can also show a week view or a day view. But each event type that your site is offering is shown in a different color. Many sites will just have one interview type. They'll just have maybe an interview day held on a couple days, and they'll be able to provide their scheduling to the applicants directly. Some will want to book individual events with each candidate. Here it shows you how many candidates are attending this event. So far we haven't invited anyone, so only 0 of 10 have been scheduled. Of these interviews, 0 of 1 have been scheduled. So now we'll go ahead and, actually, I'll just show one more thing on the event list. Here you can see it's a listing of your events. You can sort them by type. You can sort them by date. If you've added them and you need to make a change to them, you can select edit and you can change any of the information that you provide. Here we haven't provided a location or instructions or a lockout. Maybe we added this to the calendar on October 31st, but it should have been October 29th. You can change that there as well. So now we've done our settings and we've done our events. It's time now to add our candidates. So what we call candidates in NMS interview are the list of applicants that you intend to invite to interview. You start by choosing the Add Candidate link. And there are 2 ways you can add candidates. You can search and add them from a list of registered applicants. Either type in their name or their code number. For those of you who have done rankings in the NMS match system, it works very similarly. All applicants were required to provide their match code number into their APPIC applications. So you should be able to access applicant code numbers from there, but you can also search for them by name. Once you find the applicant, you select the applicant, press Add to List, and there's a confirmation screen that tells you if the applicant was added or if there were any problems. And so now your first applicant's on the list. You can assign candidates to groups, and this is helpful if you want to categorize or organize your applicants and send different invitations to them based on which group they're in. Sometimes sites will categorize these by different tiers of applicants. If perhaps they want to invite an initial set of applicants, and then later on, depending on who accepts it, and schedules their interviews, they'll invite a second tier of candidates. But in this case, we have 2 tracks, and perhaps this site wants to have different interviews for applicants in the different tracks. They can assign them a group. So let's assign the candidate Decker to the adult group. And so back on the candidate list, you can see the name of the applicant. They've now been assigned a group. If you've added an applicant and you realize you're not going to send an invitation to them, or perhaps you added them by mistake, you can select the applicant and you can delete them from your list. This doesn't send any email to the candidate. It just simply removes them from your list. So let's go back to showing you the other way that I think many sites will use to add their candidates. So search and add, that's done individually one at a time. You can also add candidates by importing a CSV file. This is a text tabular type of file. And what it will do is it will add applicants based on their email address. They'll search for a matching email address between what's registered for the match and what's in APPIC, and it will allow you to import candidates in bulk. So you can export a list of your applicant email addresses from APPIC. You should consult the APPIC instructions or APPIC support if you need help doing that. But the basic steps are you go to the import export function of APPIC. You select export, and in APPIC they call it a tabular or spreadsheet format. And you have to choose that it's a comma delimited spreadsheet. And then you select the applicant's email as the field that you want to export. So let's choose a file. Here we go. So here's a sample import file. It has the email address, the name of the applicant, the code number, the school. And then if you're importing in bulk, you can also assign candidates to the groups that you might want to create for NMS interview using the file. You would need to have a column that has the group names that you want to include there. So one applicant will be in the adult group, one will be in the pediatric, and sometimes you're going to have applicants that cross groups, in which case you should create a group name for them that combines the groups that you might want to invite them to. So we have one candidate for adult, one for pediatric, and one that's eligible to be interviewed for both of them, adult and pediatric. So we've chosen our file. You press import. So you have to select the field in your file that corresponds to their email address. Select the field that corresponds to the group. You don't have to do this. It's an optional, but if you do plan to categorize your candidates, you should probably use groups. You click import, and so here you get a confirmation screen that tells you what happened to your import, or if there are any problems with your import. So here it says 2 records were added to your candidate list. 1 record was skipped because it already exists on your candidate list. Now, the system's designed so you can import the same CSV file, the same export file over and over again. The system won't delete or duplicate any candidates that are on your existing list. And so now I should have 3 candidates on my list. They've all been assigned a group. You can sort them by group. And again, if you want to remove a candidate, you can select the candidate that you want to remove and press delete. You can, if you want to notify a candidate, perhaps after their first interview, that they've been rejected, you can select the candidate again, press the reject candidate option. It asks you which type of interview are you rejecting the candidate for. And it sends them a very simple email just saying that that the site's notifying you that you don't want to be, that you're no longer under consideration. There's a sample of what that email looks like in the user guide on the Match website. You can also use the candidate list to help communicate with the applicants that you do intend to interview. So if you select the candidate and you choose the email option, what this will do is it will open the default email client on your computer, whether you use Outlook or perhaps you use Gmail or whatever it might be. It will create a template for you to send them an email. So first it sends the email to you, whoever the user is, usually the training director or a coordinator, and then it puts all of the applicants that you've selected into the BCC field. And that way you can compose a custom message for your candidate. Perhaps you want to send a message saying, congratulations, you will be you've been selected for an interview. We're going to notify you of that our invitations are going to go out on October 18th. And so this email is sent from your system. It's not sent from the NMS match system. So it's tracked within your sent folder, whatever email client you use. But it's a helpful tool if you just want to be able to send an update message or a notification message to your candidates. Okay, so now it's time to send the invitations. Usually it's a best practice to notify candidates in advance of when you will send the invitations. It allows them to anticipate when they may need to be available to start scheduling. However, because applicants can see their full scheduling availability in real time, they do have flexibility to schedule and reschedule if necessary. So it's not like it is first come, first serve, but they do have an opportunity to manage their schedule independently as they get more invitations from other sites. So select the candidates that you want to invite. Let's invite everyone to the interview day. So we're going to select all the candidates. Press the invite button. It's going to ask you which type of interview you want to invite them to. In this case, we're going to invite them to the interview day. We could invite them only to the adult interviews or only to the pediatric interviews. And you can also invite them to all types. In this current setup where we have different tracks and different groups of candidates for different tracks, it doesn't make sense to invite all the candidates to all types. But for other sites that might have an initial interview and a follow-up interview, you might want to do that. So first, let's invite them all to the interview day. It says you're about to invite 3 candidates to interview. You click invite. Now the candidates have been sent, you get a confirmation that the candidates have been invited. They've now been sent an email that says they've been selected for interview, and it provides a unique link for them to start scheduling. Let's see if I can pull this over here. So here's a sample of what that email looks like. It says, hello, this is the name of the candidate. You've been invited to interview at the following training site. It tells them the interview type. They click the link to select the date and time of their interview. Candidates can schedule directly from their email. They can also log into the system and see a full list of all of the sites that have invited them to interview, and they can schedule from within the NMS match system. So it's not like if they don't get the email, there's no opportunity for them to schedule. But so those candidates have now been invited to the interview day. Let's invite the track-specific candidates to their interviews. So you can either sort candidates by group. You can also filter them by group. So I'm going to invite the adult candidates now. I'll select them and say invite them to the adult interviews. And they've been invited. And then finally, I'll do the pediatric. Again, this candidate's going to be invited to all types because they are available for both the adult and pediatric tracks. But I'm filtering by pediatric, and I'll invite them to the pediatric. So now all my interview invitations have been sent. The candidates can now start scheduling right now. And there are a couple reports that you can look at to help see the status. So one, there's a message log. This gives a list of all the interview invitations that have been sent out. If you have a secondary user or a coordinator that's doing the scheduling, it will show who was sent by, the date. You can see the contents of that message. And then as candidates start to schedule, your itinerary will start to populate. So right now, no applicants have scheduled an interview. But as they start to schedule, and maybe I'll log in as an applicant, let's do that so you can just see what that looks like. You'll start to see your itinerary fill up, as well as the individual interviews. If you look at any of them, you can see who's been invited, who's been scheduled. So those will show up. On the candidate list, as applicants schedule their interviews, this schedule column will change from no to yes. And so if you sent out your invitations and some time has passed, and you want to follow up with any candidates who might not have scheduled their interview, You can sort your candidates using this, select the ones who haven't interviewed and either send them an email, or you can invite them again to encourage them to schedule. So let me, let's just show you what that looks like for a second for an applicant. Okay, so here an applicant has been invited to the interview day. This is through their email. They select the link. Here are the two options for the interview day. On Monday the 23rd, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time, or Tuesday, October 24th. They select it. It gives them some confirmation, some detailed information, and then they book the interview. The applicant's this is the confirmation page. They can add it directly to their calendar. They're also sent an interview an invite by email to their calendar, to their email, letting them add it directly to their calendar. So they now have a confirmation that that they've been scheduled. So here now it says your event's been scheduled, and it allows them to add it to their calendar. Let's log in as a candidate. So here's another candidate that's been invited. So here on the calendar, they can see all the interviews that they've been invited to. They can also have a list view similar to what the applicants have. So here they have 3 scheduled interviews. Here there are the interviews that were available from our demonstration site. So this one was invited to the adult interviews, the interview day, as well as the pediatric. And then they can schedule themselves into the interview, and they see whether they've just been invited or which ones they've scheduled. They have the option of rescheduling if they need to. If they decide, oh, you know, Tuesday is actually better for me, they can do that. On their calendar view, they can also filter by the different sites that I've invited to them. They can filter whether they only want to see the ones where they've actually scheduled an interview. So they've got one here, and they've got these other interviews scheduled. So they have some options to filter and sort through all the various sites that that might have invited them to interview. Let's go back quickly and look on the program side, what it looks like now that we have at least one scheduled candidate. Okay, so if we look at the itinerary, now we're going to start to see our schedule fill up. So this applicant's scheduled for Monday the 23rd for the interview day. This one's scheduled for the 30th for the pediatric interview. If you can also see who's scheduled and manage the candidates that are booked into any event by going to the event list and pressing and viewing the interview. So this shows you all the candidates that have been invited to your interview, who's scheduled, who's been invited. If you decide you do not want one of these applicants scheduling into this event, you can revoke their invitation. If they haven't responded, you can resend their invitation. You also have the ability to force schedule a candidate. So perhaps this interview is full, but there's a candidate that couldn't get a spot and you want to put them in. You choose the force schedule option. It will show you the candidates who haven't yet been, who were invited to this interview but don't have a spot, and you can manually add them in. That's a way for you to sort of take personal control over your schedule and make exceptions if you need to for candidates that weren't able to schedule at either the time that they wanted, or if you need to accommodate them for another reason. On the candidates list, so now you can see we have a couple candidates scheduled. If you click on the candidate, you can see they've been scheduled for a pediatric interview. They haven't yet scheduled for an interview day or an adult interview. Again, here you can revoke their invitation if for some reason you don't want them scheduling into one of these events, or if they haven't responded for the interview day, let's say, you can select them and you can send this is essentially like a reminder to schedule their interview. and it will just send it to them again saying you've been invited. There are lots of instructions and tools available on the Match website related to NMS interview. So if you go to the Match website, under the internships menu option, there's an NMS interview user guide. And so this gives you all the different steps, starting with settings. It has text instructions as well as some videos to help you set up your schedule. If you have questions, you can also contact support at psychint@natmatch.com with any questions that you may have. So I encourage you to review the webinar, read through the instructions, and you can schedule. When it comes time for rankings, you'll have a new option to import your rank order list from your list of scheduled interviews. So you can, of course, search and add candidates to your list like you would have done in the past, or you still have the option of importing them from a separate file of your rankings. But now you can also import your rankings from your interviews. So you have an option here to import applicants who scheduled, and you can choose which track or which type you want to import candidates from. So if this is the pediatric track, you select pediatric, and it would import all of the candidates who scheduled interviews directly into your rank order list. Now, once they're imported, you would still have to reorder them so that they're in your order of preference. You would have to remove any candidates who you interviewed who you've decided is not suitable for the site. And of course, you can add candidates that may not have scheduled an interview, but for some reason you find that they are acceptable. So you still have to make sure your rank order list is in the right order and that it is correct and complete. But it is a helpful way for populating your list with all of the candidates that you've interviewed. And applicants, frankly, can do the same. If they, from their rank order list option, they can import into their rank order list all the sites where they've interviewed, and then proceed to put them in order of preference and remove any ones that are unacceptable, add any ones that maybe they didn't schedule through the system. But it is just a helpful tool for populating your rank order list.